What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video, and happy Saturday to all of you out there. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and welcome back to another installment of the Saturday Chat and Chill, where we sit back, relax, and talk about one topic in the King of Fighters All-Star for about 15 minutes or so. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the KoF 15 roster and how it pertains to the King of Fighters All-Star, now that we know that Netmarble has secured the rights to be able to start using the assets from KoF 15. I wanted to go ahead and go through the roster, kind of spend a little bit of time on most of the characters, but not everybody because, well, it's a pretty big roster. And we're going to talk about characters that I feel like are grossly underrepresented in the King of Fighters All-Star, and characters that are just personal favorites that I want to see added into the game. And then that way you guys can let me know in the comments section as well which characters you're most excited about and which characters you feel like need to be added into the game. So before we go ahead and get into all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Cue that intro. Alright, you guys, now in this week's installment of the Saturday Chat and Chill, I felt like it would be a real fun idea to sit down and take a look at the KoF 15 roster and talk about the roster itself, because honestly, there are a lot of characters here that have not been greatly represented in the King of Fighters All-Star just yet, and now that we know that KoF 15's roster is going to be I don't want to say the focal point, but at least something that they're going to focus on at Netmarble going forward the rest of the year for KoF All-Star, that I figured it would be kind of fun to take a look at these. Now, I'm only going to be talking about a few characters in this video that I'm most excited for, because to be honest, well, there's a lot of characters here, but I felt like this would be kind of fun too for you guys, so you can go in the comment section and let me know which characters you're most looking forward to, and it'd give me a good idea of which characters that people are really looking forward to from this roster in general, just based on your feedback. So definitely let me know in the comment section which of these characters you're interested in. Like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole roster, just some characters that I feel like are either really underrepresented or characters that are personal favorites of mine. And since they default to him on the character select screen anyway, I guess we should go ahead and start off here with Shun'ei. So Shun'ei at this point is basically a shoo-in. See what I did there? That was a terrible joke. But anyway, Shun'ei definitely is going to be one of the next characters in the King of Fighters All-Star. We've already seen allusions to him on the newest card set, as well as in the story for the Rush Dungeon. In general, Team Hero needs to be in the game in a really bad way, in my opinion, if you're going to start rolling out KoF 15 content. I'm not going to ruin anything for the KoF 15 storyline, but this team here definitely needs to be represented. There's a huge case to be made just from the standpoint that this is kind of the pseudo-protagonist at this point. And then you also have Meitenkun here, as well as Benimaru. Benimaru has been so underrepresented if you want to talk about underrepresentation of characters in this game. Benimaru is a character that has deserved a fest for a very long time. So in general, there's a case to be made for Shun'ei, Meitenkun, and Benimaru. But in general, I think Shun'ei is going to definitely be one of the next characters added into the game. Next up here, I want to talk about Joe Higashi. So Joe Higashi is another character that I have a personal kind of affinity towards. If you guys have seen my top 5 characters that I'm most looking forward to being added into the King of Fighters All-Star, those videos that I do kind of every January or so, I've done 2 of them at this point, and you would know that Shun'ei was on both of those lists, and then Joe Higashi was going to be on the first one that I ever did. In general, when it comes to Joe, he's a character that I really like, and I feel like would be really cool to see added into the game. Him and Shun'ei both have such interesting looking, just from a visual standpoint, skills in their skill set, that I feel like Netmarble, if they got a hold of those animations, would definitely make them look really good for a fest. So in general, I would love to see Joe, and he's another character that is really underrepresented as a fest in this game, so that's another character that deserves it. And in general, I think that Joe and Shun'ei here are definitely the 2 that I'm most looking forward to from this group, but in general, those are the 2 that would stand out for me. But I definitely feel like Andy's another character, honestly, you could talk about too, as being underrepresented and needs to have a fest. So next up here, I want to talk about Robert. Robert is another character that definitely deserves some sort of representation. This is a character that has not had much of any representation, and really, honestly, in the King of Fighters All-Star, is only really relevant as a gold farm character. He doesn't have a FES, he needs one. I feel like this is a character that a lot of people out there, he's kind of one of those sneaky popular characters where you don't realize that a lot of people really like him until you start kind of really taking a look at kind of comments and comment sections. Like, it would not surprise me if a lot of people in my comment section today brought up Robert. So in general, Robert, in my opinion, definitely needs one as well. And then Rio. Rio is another character, even though he does have a unified banner FES, this is a character that is one of the more iconic SNK characters at this point for their fighting games. And while he isn't necessarily on the level of a Terry or a Kyo or an Iori, he definitely does deserve to have representation. So in general, these two guys here are just grossly underrepresented and need to have a FES added in at least here in the next year or so, I would hope. But we'll have to wait and see. And of course, you guys know I'm going to simp for King all day long. So King is a character that does have a FES, still a very strong FES. In fact, I would say that honestly, once she gets a buff for her SS version and she ends up getting EX'd, she's going to be in a really good spot. But in general, another King is never going to be a character that I'm going to complain about in any way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, honestly, I guess what I'm really saying here is, yeah, I guess the entire Art of Fighting team needs to be in. Just do it. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about Betty. So Betty is a character that I feel like is really, really underrated. I have grown an affinity for Betty over the past couple of years, and I really don't know what to attribute that to. Betty was always a character that I was really kind of just like, whatever to. But in general, recently, the past couple of years, I've started to really enjoy Betty as a character. And like I said, I would like to see a new version of Betty in the game. I feel like she would look really, really good for her iteration from KoF 15. I really like her design from this game. And in general, I feel like she's a character that could definitely have some legs to her if they were to do it right. You know, we see the unified version of Betty, you know, that version of Betty, the most recent one, not the Christmas one. But the most recent version of Betty on the unified banner, still to this day, is not a bad unified FES. It's still a very, very strong character, and one that I'll use in things such as Absolute War from time to time. So in general, I feel like she deserves one. And then Kukri is another character that could definitely use a FES in the game, just because he is not represented whatsoever in the King of Fighters All-Star. So, you know, you could make a case for this entire group here for this team, but I do feel like Ash has had his time to shine recently, having Dark Ash added into the game back in December. So, in general, I would definitely say Betty and Kukri definitely deserve to be in there. And then if we're never getting King of Dinosaurs. I don't like King of Dinosaurs. Leave him. No. I'm sorry, guys. I can't stand. I don't like the design for King of Dinosaurs. I don't want to spoil anything for people who don't know who this is, but there are previous iterations of this character that I much prefer. I'm not a huge fan of King of Dinosaurs from a design standpoint. I just have this weird thing with fighting games where any of these like really just out there type characters, like design wise, I just don't get into. I know there's some people out there that's like heresy to them, and that's like one of their favorite things in fighting games, but honestly, not my thing. But Antonov. I feel like Antonov would be a lot of fun. Now, any of these grappler style characters that they add in, it used to be that grappler characters were kind of sus in the King of Fighters All-Star, but honestly, now that they've figured out a way to make grapplers interesting and relevant with things such as what we saw with that effect on Blue Mary as well as on Akuma, I feel like a character like Antonov and some of these other grappling-based characters that we're going to talk about would be awesome. So yeah, Antonov definitely. And then Ramon, I can take or leave Ramon. And like I said, no King of Dinosaurs. Not for me. Not for me. I know there's going to be people in the comment section that want King of Dinosaurs. Sorry guys, just not my thing. So, let's talk about Krohnen, right? Speaking of things that are my thing, I want a Krohnen so bad in the King of Fighters All-Star. Out of this entire roster, yes, even more than King because I already have a FES King and I already have Kings I can play around with. Krohnen is the character I want most. This is a character that obviously, you know, we were never going to get K49. That was never going to happen, or at least so we thought. but then Krohnen happened, and that shattered all expectations. This is a character that needs to be in the King of Fighters All-Star in the worst way, in my opinion. But to be honest with you, there's another character on his team that also needs to be in this game really, really badly, and that's Angel. She needs to be represented in the King of Fighters All-Star as a FES so bad. So, in general, this is a character that I know has a lot of fans. There's a lot of fans of this character for two obvious reasons, but at the same time, this is a character that does have a lot of fans out there. A lot of people have waited a very long time for her, and in general, I would love to see this character added into the King of Fighters All-Star, just not before Krohnen. I feel like if Netmarble's smart, they'll realize that Krohnen is a character that they would be able to print money for that couple of weeks if they released him. So get on it, Netmarble.
Get on it, dog on it.
All right, next up. So when it comes to all three of these characters here, honestly, Shermie needs to be represented more because Shermie has so many fans. Shermie is such a popular character. Big shout out to Gunny. I know that this is his waifu, but in general, Shermie needs a FES added in sooner rather than later, to be honest with you guys. I mean, Yashiro, there's a case to be made as well, because I know Yashiro is another character a lot of people really like, but Shermie, as far as these three characters, is on a different level. She needs to have representation. So please, Netmarble, give us KoF 15 Shermie. I promise you, the simps will come out in droves. Now, when it comes to the three Sacred Treasures team, or the Sacred Treasures team, we already have Kyo, right? So I don't need to talk about him. And arguably, we have Shizuru, because let's face it, the design doesn't change much. Iori, though, I think is a lock. He's definitely going to eventually get this version of himself added into KoFAS. I don't really see that not happening at this point. Honestly, you can't have this version of Kyo and not have Iori. So I think Iori's a shoo-in. So I'm just going to move on from there because, well, as much as we care about these characters and we like these characters, they're really kind of boring to talk about, right? So we'll kind of move on. All right, let's talk about Whip. Whip needs to have a FES. Now, out of all three of these characters, I know K is going to be the most popular, right? But Whip, I know fans of Whip out there. Big shout out to Vance. Big shout out to the people in the chat that love Whip. This character needs to have a FES. In general, I feel like there is a very solid chance that this character is going to end up getting a FES eventually. But at the same time, out of all the characters we're going to talk about today, I feel like she's probably going to be towards the bottom of the list, unfortunately. I don't know that she's necessarily a super popular character, even though, like I said, I know several people out there that love her. But in general, out of all three of these guys, she's the one that is the most underrepresented, and I feel like is the most interesting to get a new FES, because we've already seen versions of Maxima, whether it be the BS version of him or otherwise. Yes, he doesn't necessarily have like a super solid FES in the game yet, but in general, this is a character that does have more representation, I feel. And then K-Dash, I mean, Edgelord boy, he has all kinds of characters at this point, so when is your SS version getting buffed, huh? Anyway, speaking of SS versions that need buffs, this entire team. So I want to talk about Athena. I've never been a huge fan of Athena, right? She's always been a character that I've always just been kind of whatever to. I've always kind of off and on played as her in certain games and just maybe dicked around with her, but never really been a super fan. I love this version of Athena. KoF 15 made me a fan. I don't know what it is about her. I love this design for her. I think that out of all the Athena designs that she has ever had, this is the sharpest and probably the most eye-catching. And in general, I want to see a KoF 15 Athena added into the game really bad. Out of all three of these characters, she's the one I want the most. So yeah, in general, Athena is one that is a personal favorite, and I would love to see her added in because I love this design choice that they made for her. Mai is another one that probably deserves to have an EX added in. And then Yuri is just kind of Yuri. I know there's some Yuri fans out there, but at the same time, I feel like SS Yuri just needs to get buffed. So in general, Mai, I feel like, is a shoo-in eventually. Kind of like, I guess I should say K-Dash is probably also a shoo-in, probably as well. But Athena, I want to see an EX version added in or whatever the case may be, because I love this KoF 15 version. So definitely make it happen, Netmarble. Next up here, Vanessa. So Vanessa is a character that deserves it, right? Vanessa has a lot of fans. Vanessa's a cool character. Vanessa's underrated, and Vanessa deserves a new FAS. So I feel like the KoF 15 version, they made very few changes to her design overall, but at the same time, she looks beautiful, right? I love this iteration of Vanessa. I said that whenever her trailer came out. I was in love with the design choice that they made here. They made so many good design choices in KoF 15, but this Vanessa, in my opinion, this is the best she's ever looked. So definitely, I feel like she deserves to be in there. Another one is Luong. Luong is interesting. I'm not a huge fan, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that like her. So in general, Luong fans deserve it just because she is not represented at all, and we are talking about underrepresented characters in the game right now as far as who should be added in. But in general, though, out of this group, I feel like Vanessa's the winner. Blue Mary recently had SS Blue Mary. She's still a god, so, you know, we don't need to really talk about her, but in general, Vanessa's the winner there. Isla. So this entire team deserves it, to be honest, because this entire team is either completely unrepresented or needs more representation. Heidern. But in general, Isla, I feel like, is the one out of the three that deserves it first. So in general, this is a character kind of like Shune, well, which is kind of not ironic and honestly by design on the part of SNK, but still. Isla is a character that kind of like Shune is very, very flashy, very cool when it comes to her animations, deserves to have some sort of really, really well done FAS in the King of Fighters All-Star. I feel like with the way that her animations work, she would look really, really cool. So in general, Isla is the character here that I would pick out of the three, but honestly, my heart wants to say Heidern because Heidern is a really cool character. I like Heidern. I feel like Heidern gets little to no respect in the King of Fighters All-Star, and I would love to see a FAS KoF 15 version of him. And then finally, the group that probably is the most underrepresented as far as FAS is these two guys here, right? These two guys get no love. Poor Ralph and poor Clark. Leona gets all the love, and then these two guys over here, they ignore them like they don't exist. So Ralph and Clark both need a FAS, right? They've never gotten a FAS, either of them. It's kind of surprising. I feel like these two guys would be able to shine, and in general, these two guys deserve to be in the game as FAS. So please, Netmarble, make it happen. I know so many people out there that would be so hyped to see that. And in general, these two guys are very, very popular, whether people realize it or not. There are a lot of hardcore classic SNK fans that love these guys, and I feel like they deserve it. Like, you can't underrepresent these three guys as much as you do in the King of Fighters All-Star for very long. These three guys eventually are going to need a FAS, right? So make it happen, Netmarble. Leona, you get enough love. I know there's a lot of Leona simps, but my god, she has enough for now. Like, you still have Boss Syndrome Leona. She's gonna get buffed. Like, and she's still an incredible character. So she'll eventually happen because, again, simps. But Leona, out of the three, definitely at the bottom of the totem pole. Clark and Ralph need it the most. And then finally, the team that I haven't bought yet. So I've actually admittedly not even opened up KoF 15 in about a month because I've just been, ever since Street Fighter V collab, I have been so busy, I haven't done anything else besides what it has to do with the channel. If it doesn't have to do with the channel, if I haven't been making content on it, I haven't been playing it. So in general, the three characters here that I have not bought, of course being Rockboy, Bijane, and Gato, all three of them, in my opinion, need a FAS. All three of them. And I feel like Rock needs it the most because out of all three of these, he's the most popular, but Gato would be awesome. And Bijane, while Bijane does have representation, it is a personal favorite of mine, you guys know that. So in general, I'm just gonna go ahead and say all three of these because I love all three of these. But Rockboy definitely, I feel like, needs one. Hopefully they end up giving us an EX Rock with maybe an SS Terry rerun when he gets buffed or whatever the case may be. But in general, all three of these guys deserve it, and gal, sorry. But in general, those are the three characters that I don't have. I saved them for last because, well, you can just pretend that their character marbles up there in the corner. But in general, all three of them deserve it for different reasons. Of course, I've always wanted a super solid Rock Howard, so that's going to be my top pick of the three. But I feel like Gato would be really, really cool. Like, really cool in King of Fighters All-Star. And then I guess we could talk about Rugal, but bro, you have like 5 or 6 iterations in the game, and at least one of them is top tier, so you can wait. Anyway, you guys, that is going to be this week's Saturday Chat and Chill. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section down below which of these characters you'd be most excited for, because again, I feel like it would be really interesting and kind of cool to see what you guys think and what you're feeling when it comes to this roster as it pertains to characters you'd like to see in the King of Fighters All-Star. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. You all have a wonderful weekend. Peace.
Continue.